Can you imagine being pushed to the brink, watching your entire life crumble, only for your 7-year-old daughter to stand up in court and ask the judge, "May I show you something my mom doesn't know?" Your Honor. That sentence, spoken by my little girl, was the turning point that saved me from absolute destruction. It all started on what felt like my personal doomsday. My husband, Tmain, had filed for divorce. Not just any divorce, though. He accused me of being a failed mother and wife, a woman completely unworthy, and then had the audacity to demand every single property we owned and, worst of all, full custody of our daughter. My world was already crashing, but nothing could prepare me for what happened next in that cold courtroom. That's when I heard Zaria's small voice cutting through the thick silence, asking the judge for permission to show something I knew nothing about. The judge, clearly intrigued, nodded. My heart hammered against my ribs, terrified of what my daughter might reveal, but also desperately curious. Zaria, my little princess, stepped forward, a small tablet clutched in her hands, and pressed play. As the screen flickered to life, the entire room froze in stunned silence. Life before that moment was a carefully constructed facade. Every morning, I, Nola, would rise before dawn, moving like a ghost through our large, beautiful home. The scent of fresh coffee would mingle with the whirring of the washing machine, a domestic symphony I conducted in hushed tones, always careful not to disturb Tmain's precious peace. For years, I had learned to make myself small, invisible, hoping that if I was quiet enough, perfect enough, the man I married would return. At 6 a.m. sharp, Tmain would descend the stairs, immaculate in his freshly pressed shirt. A hot mug of black coffee and a steaming plate of breakfast would instantly appear before him, placed by my hands. He would take the mug without a glance, his eyes already glued to his phone. "The coffee is a little bitter today," he'd drone, his voice dry, devoid of any warmth. I'd murmur an apology, my voice barely a whisper, even though I'd painstakingly measured every grain. He'd ignore me, pushing his plate away, eating only a few mouthfuls in chilling silence. I'd stand awkwardly nearby, waiting for an instruction, a word, anything, but there was only the dense, cold quiet, thick enough to freeze the steam rising from his coffee. I couldn't remember the last time we'd laughed over breakfast, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, before his business trip stretched longer, his workdays ended later. "Is Zaria up?" he'd ask, still not looking at me. "Yes, honey. She's showering. She'll be down soon," I'd reply, trying to inject some cheer into my voice. A few minutes later, the light sound of footsteps would announce Zaria's arrival. Our 7-year-old would bound into the room in her crisp private school uniform, her bright smile a blinding contrast to the morning's suffocating atmosphere. "Good morning, Mommy and Daddy," she'd chirp, kissing my cheek before turning to Tmain. He'd finally put his phone down, forcing a faint smile. "Good morning, Princess. Finish your food. Daddy will take you to school." Zaria would squeal with delight. It was a small mercy, a brief reprieve. At least in front of our daughter, Tmain made an effort to appear warm. This fleeting breakfast was the only family time we had. As soon as Zaria finished, Tmain would stand abruptly, grab his briefcase, kiss Zaria's forehead, and walk past me as if I were thin air. No goodbye, no kiss, not even a glance. Just the roar of his luxury car driving away, leaving me utterly alone in the vast emptiness of our house. The rest of my morning would be a familiar routine, clearing the table, washing dishes, doing laundry, tidying rooms. I strive for perfection. I truly believe that if the house was clean enough, the food delicious enough, I quiet enough, the old Tmain, the loving Tmain, would somehow return. But he had vanished a long, long time ago. My favorite part of the day was picking Zaria up from school. I loved listening to her animated chatter about friends, art class, or her lunchbox. "Mommy, today I got 5 gold stars from the teacher. I answered the question right," she'd exclaim, holding my hand, her voice bright. "Wow, my daughter is so smart," I'd praise sincerely, pinching her little nose. Back home, as I helped Zaria take off her shoes, The roar of a motorcycle outside made us both look up. A uniformed courier shouted my name. "Nola, a package for you." I frowned. I hadn't ordered anything. I walked to the door and received a thick, brown envelope. No sender name, just the logo of a law firm in the corner. My heart began to beat an uneasy rhythm. "Who is it, Mommy?" Zaria asked, having followed me. "I don't know, Princess. Probably just junk mail. Go change, and then we'll have lunch," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though my hands trembled. Once Zaria was in her room, I sank onto the living room sofa. My fingers shook as I ripped open the envelope. Inside was a stack of papers, dense and intimidating. The first sentence on the top page made me gasp, stealing the air from my lungs. Petition for dissolution of marriage. My world tilted. My ears rang. I reread the words, desperate for my eyes to have deceived me. Plaintiff, Tmain. Defendant, Nola. Reason for the suit. The wife has totally failed in the fulfillment of her marital duties. Nausea churned in my stomach. Failed? I had given my life to this house, sacrificed my career at Tmain's request, nurtured Zaria, ensured Tmain's shirts were spotless. What did he mean? Failed? I kept reading, my eyes blurring at the cruel demands. He wasn't just asking for a divorce. He wanted full custody of Zaria, claiming I was emotionally unstable and incapable of raising a child. And, most devastatingly, he demanded all marital assets, including our house, arguing I hadn't contributed financially. I collapsed weakly onto the cold hardwood floor, the papers scattered around me like fallen dreams. So this was it. This was why he'd been so cold. It was a secret, calculated plan. The front door opened. Tmain, home unusually early. He stood there, looking at me crumpled on the floor, then at the scattered papers. His expression was utterly cold, devoid of any guilt. "Honey, what does this mean?" My voice trembled, tears already welling up. He took off his shoes in silence, walked over, loosening his tie. He didn't deny it, didn't explain. He just said, his voice like ice, "It is exactly what you read. I don't want to live with you anymore, Nola. You have failed. You have failed as a wife and as a mother." Failed? I moaned in disbelief. "I've taken care of this house and raised Zaria." He scoffed with disdain. "Taking care of the house. The only thing you've done is spend my money. Zaria needs a better mother, a competent one, not someone who only knows how to cry and complain like you." Then, the final blow. "But all the property, this house, and Zaria, honey, you can't take them from me." I began to scream hysterically. Tmain crouched down, his eyes piercing me with a sharp, cold hatred I had never seen. "I can and I will. My lawyer has all the evidence gathered. You won't get anything, Nola. You will leave this house without a single dollar." He stood up, smoothing his suit, looking towards the stairs to ensure Zaria couldn't hear. And then, he grinned, a chilling smile that froze my blood. "My lawyer says that even your own daughter will testify in court about how incompetent you are as a mother." I froze, terror gripping my heart. It shattered into a million pieces. He didn't just want to divorce me. He wanted to destroy me completely. I didn't sleep that night. After the cruel confrontation, Tmain had retreated to the guest room, locking the door as if I were a threat. I spent the night in Zaria's room, sitting in a chair by her bed, watching her peaceful sleeping face. Tears streamed down my cheeks. How could he say Zaria would testify against me? Zaria was everything to me. What lies would they have told my little girl? That thought tormented me more than any other accusation. The next morning, Tmain acted as if nothing had happened. He woke Zaria, prepared her uniform, and took her to school. He didn't speak a word to me. When Zaria asked why my eyes were puffy, he replied indifferently, "Mummy isn't feeling very well, Princess." Once they left, true terror took hold. I had to fight. I couldn't give up Zaria so easily. I grabbed my phone, searching for renowned divorce lawyers. But the harsh reality struck quickly. Lawyers needed money, a retainer, a consultation fee. I realized I had no money. For years, Tmain had given me only a monthly allowance, budgeted precisely for groceries and Zaria's school. There was no room to save anything. My only hope was our joint account, the one I believed was our family's emergency fund. With trembling hands, I opened the banking app, my heart hammering. When the balance appeared, my legs gave out. Zero. It couldn't be. There should be hundreds of thousands in there. I refreshed repeatedly, hoping for a system error, but the number zero stayed back. I opened the transaction history, and my eyes widened in horror. Over the last 6 months, Tmain had systematically withdrawn large amounts, transferring them to an unknown account. The last withdrawal had been just 3 days ago, emptying the rest. He had planned this. He wasn't just leaving. He had deliberately crippled me financially so I couldn't fight back. I cried in despair. How could I hire a lawyer without a single dollar? Then I remembered my wedding jewelry. I ran to my room and flung open my jewelry box. Empty. Only a few imitation trinkets remained. He had taken even my heirlooms. In my desperation, I remembered an old friend who worked at a legal aid agency. I called her, telling her the situation through sobs. She pitied me but could only give me a name, Attorney Abernathy. He has a small office on the 2nd floor of an old strip mall. He isn't expensive, but he's honest and dedicated. Go see him. Explain your situation. Maybe he can help. I had no other choice. With the last bit of cash in my purse, I hailed a cab. Attorney Abernathy's office was exactly as described. Small, modest, in an old building with peeling paint. He was a middle-aged black man with thick glasses and a calm demeanor. He listened patiently, without interruption, only nodding and taking notes. When I finished, he let out a long sigh. Nola, this is going to be an uphill battle. Your husband has prepared all of this very thoroughly. He doesn't just want a divorce. He wants to destroy you. I know, attorney, but I don't care about the properties. I just want Zaria. Please help me. I don't have money now, but I will pay you. I will pay you in installments. I will do anything, I pleaded desperately. Abernathy looked at me. Let's leave the money issue for later, Nola. What's important now is we move fast. This lawsuit has already been filed. We have to prepare a response immediately. He left and returned with a folder of photocopies, Tmain's lawsuit documents. Your husband's lawyer is Attorney Cromwell. He's known for being sharp and not hesitating to use dirty tactics, Abernathy said firmly. Let's see what evidence they presented. My heart pounded. He opened the folder. The first page contained photographs. I gasped in shock. Pictures of my home's interior. Photos of dirty dishes piled in the kitchen, the living room cluttered with toys, dirty clothes in the laundry basket. But this is unfair. I protested. These are photos he took when I was sick. I had a high fever for 3 days, and Tmain didn't help at all. He took them on purpose. Abernathy's expression was bitter. Nola, I'm afraid this has been manipulated to make it look like you're a lazy person who doesn't maintain the house. We turned to the next page's credit card statements. I saw a list of charges for luxury handbags, jewelry, and expensive restaurant dinners that I had never bought. That's not me. I didn't buy these things. Was it an additional card in your name? Abernathy asked. Yes, an additional one. Tmain managed it. He told me to use it if I needed to, but he took it often, saying his main card had exceeded the limit. Oh my God, he set me up. I felt the world spin. Every small kindness from Tmain had been part of his evil plan. Then, Abernathy stopped at a thick document at the end. And this is the most damaging thing. Nola. What is it, attorney? It was the testimony of an expert witness, a child psychologist. He handed me the report. It was written in cold, clinical terms, claiming the psychologist had conducted covert observations of my interactions with Zaria. The conclusion: I was emotionally unstable, neglected Zaria's needs, and was detrimental to her psychological development. The report recommended full custody for Tmain. This makes no sense. When was this observation done? I never met a psychologist. My voice shook violently. According to this report, the observation was conducted in public places, at the park, the mall, and when you picked up your daughter from school, Abernathy explained. That's crazy. Zaria always seemed happy with me. This is defamation. Who is this psychologist? Abernathy flipped to the cover. Her name is Dr. Valencia. Here are all her credentials. She seems very professional and convincing. He looked at me seriously. Nola, do you know this woman? I shook my head, bewildered, tears falling again. No, attorney. I don't know her. I've never seen her in my life. By the way, if you're still with me, make sure to hit subscribe. More unbelievable stories are coming. The reality of living under the same roof with a man who planned to destroy me was a silent hell. Tmain hadn't left the house. He had simply moved into the guest room. Our once warm home now felt like a frozen battlefield, with emotional landmines hidden everywhere. I had to live with my enemy, see him every morning, and pretend everything was normal for Zaria's sake. Tmain played his part perfectly in front of our daughter. He became the best father in the world. He came home earlier, something he hadn't done in months, bringing expensive gifts. One night, he returned with a large box featuring a cartoon princess. "This is your new tablet, Zaria," he exclaimed, hugging her. "It's much better than the old one, with a better camera, and Daddy installed lots of games for you." Zaria's eyes shone. "Wow, thanks, Daddy." I, folding laundry in the living room, could only swallow hard, my heart aching. I knew what he was doing. He was buying her loyalty. I couldn't compete. I didn't have $1 to buy Zaria anything. "You see, Princess," Tmain said, looking at me with a sneer while turning on the new tablet. "When you live with Daddy later, you'll be able to buy a new toy every week, unlike someone who only knows how to fold clothes." I stopped, a knot in my chest. I wanted to scream, to insult him, but I couldn't in front of Zaria. If I got angry, it would only prove his accusation that I was emotionally unstable. So, I just continued folding clothes in silence, head bowed, letting Tmain's poison fill the room. The terror continued daily. He systematically undermined my authority as a mother. If I prepared dinner, he'd come into the kitchen, taste the food, and say, in front of Zaria, "Honey, the soup is a little salty again." "It's okay. Tomorrow, we'll order takeout." If I helped Zaria with homework, he'd interrupt, "Let me do it. The way Mommy teaches you is too complicated. You're going to get confused." I felt smaller and smaller, more invisible in my own home. I began to doubt myself. Did I really cook badly? Was I truly incapable of teaching my daughter? Tmain played his role too well, making me seem inept. Zaria, caught in the middle, began to show confusion. She clearly loved me, but she also enjoyed all the attention and gifts from her father. Sometimes she'd cling to me, seeking protection, but other times she seemed uncomfortable, especially after Tmain whispered something to her. One night, I couldn't sleep. I walked silently to Zaria's room to check on her. She was sleeping deeply. On her desk was the new tablet Tmain had bought her. But as I drew closer, I saw something strange. Zaria's small hand was clutching something under her pillow. It wasn't her favorite teddy bear. I looked carefully, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Zaria's old tablet. The cheap one with the screen cracked in several places. The one I always told her not to play with, fearing the glass pieces might hurt her. I frowned. Why did she still keep this broken tablet? Why hide it under her pillow when the newer one was on her desk? I didn't understand, attributing it to a child's emotional attachment. I had no idea that broken tablet held a secret that would change everything. I returned to my room, my mind even more confused. The climax happened a few days later. I was waiting for Zaria to return from school, having promised to bake her favorite chocolate cake. But an hour after dismissal, she didn't arrive. I called the school. They said Tmain had picked her up. My heart sank. He hadn't told me anything. I called him repeatedly, but he didn't answer. 2 hours passed, then 3. I was frantic with worry, pacing, tears blurring my vision. It wasn't until 9 p.m. that I heard Tmain's car. Zaria entered, laughing, carrying a large bag of amusement park souvenirs. Behind her, Tmain walked calmly, a smirk on his face. "Where have you been, honey? Why did you take Zaria without telling me?" I was dying of worry. I shouted, my voice thick with tears and rage. "Daddy took me to Wonderland Park, Mommy. It was so much fun," Zaria exclaimed happily. Tmain looked at me coldly. So what? I'm her father. I have the right to take my own daughter. Besides, you aren't doing anything at home. But you should have told me. Why? So you could ruin our fun with your drama. Then I smelled it. A woman's perfume. A soft, unfamiliar scent permeating Tmain's shirt. Not mine. Not his usual cologne. Honey, you... Tmain followed my gaze. He knew I'd smelled it. He didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled. He waited for Zaria to run to her room to put away her new toys. Alone, Tmain approached, his face close to mine, his voice a low, venomous hiss. Did you notice? Did you really think I was going to live forever with a woman as boring as you? You are nothing compared to her. I gasped, taking a step back. There was another woman. All of this, all the accusations, were just an elaborate attempt to get rid of me, to be with her. Who is she? I whispered. None of your business. She is a successful, intelligent woman who knows how to please a man, unlike you. That night, Zaria came to my room. Mommy, why are you crying? I quickly wiped my tears. I'm okay, princess. My head just hurts a little. Zaria looked at me with an expression hard to decipher. Are you really sick, Mommy? Daddy says that since you are sick, you are often sad and angry. Daddy said that if I go live with him later, Mommy will be able to rest and get better. My heart shattered. Tmain had been injecting poison into my little girl's mind. He had manipulated Zaria into believing it was an act of kindness to leave my side, to let me rest because I was sick. I hugged Zaria tight. Zaria, listen to me. I'm not sick. I just love you so much. I promise I won't get angry anymore. But the damage was done. I saw the hesitation in her eyes. Tmain, listening from the doorway, only sneered in the darkness. He walked past me, stunning me, and gave a little tap on my shoulder, feigning sympathy. Enjoy your time, he mocked in a low voice in my ear. Soon she won't even want to call you Mom. The mediation hearing was a cruel joke. In a small, stuffy room, the court-appointed mediator tried to find common ground. Attorney Abernathy began, his voice calm. Tmain, Nola doesn't ask for much. She only wants custody of Zaria, or at least shared custody. Regarding property, we can talk. Before he could finish, Attorney Cromwell, well-dressed and expensive, interrupted sharply. There is nothing to talk about. He slammed a file onto the table. Our client's position is clear. Nola is the failed party in this marriage. It has been proven she has failed in maintaining the home and raising the child. Our client demands full custody for Zaria's future. Tmain sat beside him, face blank, playing the victim. I only want the best for my daughter, he said with fake sadness. Taking her mother away is the best for her. I trembled. Cromwell chuckled. Nola, if you keep insisting, we will take this to trial. And I assure you that all the evidence we have will humiliate you. The photos, the credit card statements, the expert testimony. You had better sign this agreement. Our client is being benevolent by allowing you to leave the house without any countersuit. Leave my house with nothing, and without Zaria? Are you crazy? I screamed. The mediator tried to intervene, but Tmain and his lawyer were inflexible. The mediation broke down completely. Abernathy patted my shoulder as we left. Stay strong, Nola. The real fight begins now. The first day of trial arrived. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. Abernathy reminded me to keep calm at all costs. The courtroom was cold, intimidating, with high wooden walls, heavy chairs, and the judge's gavel looking very authoritative. Tmain sat opposite, looking smugly confident with Attorney Cromwell. The trial began. Attorney Cromwell spoke fluently, his voice loud and sure, presenting his twisted version of facts. He showed the photos of the messy house, accusing me of being a lazy and dirty housewife. He showed the credit card statements, accusing me of being wasteful and financially irresponsible. Your Honor, he said dramatically, while my client Tmain worked hard to earn money, his wife was at home wasting it and neglecting her daughter and her home. I wanted to scream that it was all a lie, that Tmain had set me up, that he'd used the card, taken the photos on purpose when I was sick, but all I could do was clasp my hands under the table. Abernathy gave me a reassuring look. When it was Abernathy's turn, he tried to refute. He explained the photos were taken out of context, the credit card statements used by Tmain himself. But his argument sounded weak. It was my word against the physical evidence presented by Cromwell. The judge took notes, his expression unreadable. Then came the moment I feared most. The plaintiff calls his expert witness, Cromwell announced. Dr. Valencia, child psychologist. The courtroom door opened. A woman entered. I held my breath. She was beautiful, elegant, her hair neatly pulled back, dressed in a professional blazer, walking with a confident stride. She didn't look evil at all. She looked convincing. As she took her oath, I smelled it. The same perfume, the same fragrance that had permeated Tmain's shirt that night. My heart stopped. It was her, Tmain's mistress, posing as a child psychologist. Valencia sat in the witness box. She spoke calmly, her diction clear, using psychological terms that sounded professional and impressive. Yes, Your Honor, she began, answering Cromwell's questions. I conducted observations of the natural behavior of Mrs. Nolla and her daughter Zaria over the last 3 months. And what were your findings, Doctor? Cromwell asked. Valencia opened her notes. My findings were very concerning. I found a pattern of behavior in Mrs. Nolla that tends to be inconsistent and emotionally volatile. There are signs of significant emotional distress. She began to detail lies, turning facts into deadly weapons. First observation. At a shopping mall, Mrs. Nolla pulled Zaria forcefully, speaking to her loudly, which made Zaria cry in fear in front of people. This shows a low capacity for emotional regulation. I closed my eyes. I remember that day. Zaria had almost thrown herself towards the wrong escalator. I had shouted and pulled her back in shock, terrified she'd get hurt, but Valencia had twisted it into verbal abuse. Second observation. In a park, Valencia continued. Mrs. Nolla seemed to be more absorbed in her phone, ignoring Zaria, who was playing alone. When Zaria fell, Mrs. Nolla didn't notice immediately. When she did, her reaction was exaggerated and tended towards hysteria, which further traumatized Zaria about the fall. Another lie. I remembered texting about the grocery list Tmain had demanded. Zaria tripped. I genuinely got scared, ran immediately, hugged and consoled her. My reaction was that of a concerned mother, not a hysterical one. My conclusion, Valencia said, staring at the judge with a steady voice, is that Mrs. Nolla does not have the stable emotional capacity to raise a 7-year-old girl. There are strong signs of parentification syndrome where Mrs. Nolla subconsciously projects her own unhappiness and emotional problems onto the child. For Zaria's mental health, I strongly recommend full custody for the father, Mr. Tmain, who is the more stable figure. The room fell silent. Valencia's testimony was powerful, scientific, destructive. I cried silently. It's a lie, I whispered to Abernathy. It's all a lie. She is Tmain's mistress. It's her. Calm down, Nolla, Abernathy replied tensely. Don't react. That's what they want. Abernathy stood for cross-examination. He tried. Dr. Valencia, are you sure you can make such a serious diagnosis based solely on distant observations? Valencia smiled slightly. On the contrary, counselor, natural observations without the subject being aware are the most accurate. There is no manipulation. It is pure, real behavior. You are paid by Mr. Tmain for this testimony, isn't that right? I was paid for my professional services, counselor, not for my conclusions. My conclusions are objective and based on data from the field, Valencia retorted cleverly. Abernathy was at a dead end. Valencia had dodged every question, covered all holes. The trial adjourned for the day. I left the room, my legs shaking, feeling utterly destroyed. I saw Tmain smiling slightly, nodding to Valencia with satisfaction. In the lobby, I leaned against the wall and sobbed. We lost, attorney. We lost. They have everything. Abernathy remained silent for a moment. Then he stared at Tmain and Valencia, who were walking together in the distance, discreetly separated, but not entirely far apart. Not yet, Nolla, Abernathy said in a low voice, eyes narrowed. I know something is wrong. The way she looks at him when she thinks no one sees her is not the way a professional psychologist looks at a client. We have to find out who she really is. A few days before the next hearing, Abernathy called me to his office. His face looked tired. The stack of papers on his desk was thicker than before. Nola, I tried to trace the woman's background. He said, blunt. The result is different from what we expected. My heart raced. What do you mean, attorney? Her credentials are clean. Too clean, Abernathy said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. She is registered with the Psychological Association. She is a registered practice clinic. All the documentation is perfect. Either she is a real psychologist that Tmain hired to lie for money, or Tmain forged this entire identity very cleanly. The brief hope I had held vanished instantly. So we can't prove she's lying. No, we simply can't prove she isn't a psychologist. The only way is to refute her testimony. And that means you have to testify. Nola, Abernathy looked at me seriously. You have to tell your whole side of the story, about the photos, about the credit cards, about Tmain's behavior. And most importantly, you must not get emotionally upset. Attorney Cromwell will definitely try to provoke you. He will want you to look hysterical in front of the judge, exactly as Valencia described you. I nodded silently. I will do it, attorney. I will try. The day arrived. It was my turn to sit on the witness stand. After being sworn in, Abernathy began with gentle questions, guiding me to tell my life as a housewife. I explained, my voice attempting to remain as calm as possible, how I left my job to focus on Zaria, detailing my routine from dawn to late night. About the photos of the messy house. Nola, can you explain the context? Abernathy asked. Yes, attorney. Those photos were taken by Tmain about 2 months ago. I was severely ill with a high fever for 3 days. At that time, I could barely get out of bed. I asked Tmain to take care of the household, but he said he was too busy with work, so the house got very messy. I didn't have the energy to clean, I explained. And about the credit card statements, I continued, it was an additional card in my name, but Tmain had it more frequently. He said his main card often reached the limit with business matters. I believed him. I never bought those luxury bags nor that jewelry. I didn't know about those charges until I saw them in the lawsuit documents. I said everything with honesty. I saw some in the gallery begin to whisper. Some looked at me with sympathy, but the judge remained silent, his face unreadable. Then came Attorney Cromwell's turn. The cunning lawyer stood, smoothed his tie, and walked toward the witness stand with a sneer. Nola, he began in a sickly sweet tone. So you mean to say that your husband, Mr. Tmain, who works hard and brings money home, set you up on purpose? Is that it? I stammered. I didn't say that. I just said what happened. But that sounds, the husband takes photos of the dirty house. The husband uses the credit card. Everything is the husband's fault. It seems that you are not to blame for anything. Are you perfect? Of course not. I'm not perfect, but I'm not a failure. Not a failure, Cromwell scoffed with disdain. Nola, you said you were sick when those photos were taken. Do you have any medical report proving you were gravely ill for 3 days? I remained silent. I didn't go to the hospital. I just took medicine from a pharmacy. I thought I would recover, so there is no proof. Cromwell attacked quickly. It's just your word against real photographic evidence. Interesting. He moved to the credit cards. You say your husband used them, but the card is in your name. Did you ever inform the bank that the card was being misused? No. Did you ever reprimand your husband? No. You said nothing. Doesn't this prove you are negligent and financially irresponsible? Or does it mean you approved all the purchases? I trusted him. He was my husband. My voice rose. Blind trust, snapped Cromwell. A trust that ruined the family finances. And now you blame your husband. I am not blaming him enough. Cromwell raised his hand, returned to his table, and picked up a large printed photo. He held it up for the judge and everyone to see. Your Honor, I request permission to present Exhibit P12. My eyes widened with horror. It was a photo of me in my bedroom a few weeks before the divorce papers arrived, hair disheveled, crying and screaming. Mrs. Nola, can you explain this photo? Cromwell asked, triumphant. I trembled violently. Tears began to well up again. Isn't this real proof of what Dr. Valencia said? Volatile emotions. Hysteria? Is this the face of a competent mother? You don't understand. I wailed, tears now pouring down. That night, Tmain had just come home. He called me a useless wife. He said I was a burden. He insulted me. He said I didn't deserve to be Zaria's mother. He provoked me. So, you admit it. Cromwell attacked, not giving me a breath. You admit you screamed hysterically. You admit you lost control. You are emotionally volatile. Exactly as Dr. Valencia described. Right. No. I shouted, standing up from my chair. He set me up. He took the photo of me in secret after hurting me. He is a devil. Enough. The judge's gavel struck hard. Witness, calm down. Sit down. I sobbed, my shoulders shaking. I slumped back into my chair, destroyed. Everything destroyed. I had behaved exactly as Tmain and Cromwell wanted. I looked hysterical. I looked unstable. I looked the image of the failed mother they had fabricated. I looked towards Tmain's side. He had his head bowed, making a fake grimace of sadness, as if hurt by his wife's instability. Attorney Cromwell smiled smugly. The judge shook his head slowly, his expression clay. He had already taken a side. That day's trial ended with total destruction for my side. Abernathy tried to console me as we left, but I felt numb. It's over, attorney, I whispered weakly. That night was the longest of my life. The sentencing hearing was the next day. I knew I was going to lose. I was going to lose Zaria. I went into her room. My daughter was already asleep. Tmain wasn't home, probably celebrating his victory with Valencia in advance. I sat at the foot of the bed, stroking Zaria's hair. My tears fell silently onto her cheek, and she stirred a little. Mommy, she said, her eyes half asleep. Go back to sleep, princess, I whispered, my voice raw from crying. I hugged her tight. Maybe the last hug as a full mother. I want you to know whatever happens tomorrow, Mommy loves you very much. Always. Sensing my sadness, Zaria hugged me back tightly. I love you too, Mommy. I undid the hug slowly. It was then I saw it again. The corner of the old, cracked tablet was sticking out from under Zaria's pillow. She was clutching it tightly even while sleeping. I couldn't understand why she was so obsessed with that broken object, but that night I was too destroyed to think deeper about it. I simply kissed my daughter on the forehead and left to face the end of my world. The courtroom was colder than usual, the morning air heavy and suffocating. I sat rigidly in my chair, eyes puffy and empty. I hadn't slept all night. Beside me, Attorney Abernathy stared ahead with a somber expression. He knew he had done everything possible, but like me, he faced a giant wall. The atmosphere on the opposite side was very different. Tmain looked fresh and confident in a new suit. He smiled occasionally, exchanging quiet jokes with Cromwell. Victory was before his eyes. In the gallery, I saw Valencia, elegantly dressed in a cream-colored dress, looking at me with a barely visible smile, the smile of the victor. The judge entered. The room fell silent instantly. My heart hammered, aching. In the matter of the divorce petition, registry number, family court case number, the judge began formally. Today's subject is the reading of the verdict. But before that, I requested both parties present their closing arguments. Attorney Cromwell stood first, summarizing his victory skillfully. Your Honor, he said loudly, during this trial, we have seen irrefutable evidence. The photographic proof showing Mrs. Nolla's neglect of household tasks, the financial proof showing her irresponsibility, and most importantly, the testimony of the eminent child psychologist, Dr. Valencia, who objectively and scientifically presented the defendant's emotional instability. Cromwell pointed at me. We even witnessed Mrs. Nolla's hysterical conduct in this courtroom during the last trial, which supports Dr. Valencia's diagnosis and is clearly recorded. He turned toward Tmain. On the other hand, we have Mr. Tmain, a capable father, financially successful, and above all, emotionally stable and genuinely concerned for his daughter's future. Your Honor, the choice here is very clear. It is not about punishing the wife, but about saving the child. For Zaria's best interest, I beg you to grant full custody to our client, Mr. Tmain, and approve his request for division of assets. Cromwell sat down with a smug smile. Now it was Abernathy's turn. He stood slowly, looking around the room, not at the judge. Your Honor, he began with a soft but firm voice. What we have witnessed here is not proof. It is character assassination, a very well-planned defamation. Photos can lie. One can take a photo of the best chef's kitchen in the world at the wrong moment and make it look dainty. Statements can be manipulated, especially when one party has total financial control and the trust of the other. And the expert testimony. The testimony of an expert who only observed from a distance and drew radical conclusions from a few fragments of incidents out of context is not stronger than the deep maternal love a mother has accumulated over 7 years. Abernathy looked directly at Tmain. Your Honor, we are not saving a girl. We are witnessing a greedy husband try to get rid of his wife, steal her assets, and cruelly take away the only thing that is most precious to her, her daughter. Nola is a good mother. His voice trembled slightly with emotion. She is not perfect. No mother is, but she has dedicated her life to Zaria. Do not allow this well-woven defamation to destroy that bond. I beg you to judge with conscience. Abernathy sat down. The room was silent. His argument had been excellent, emotional, but I knew it wasn't enough. His argument was based on belief. Cromwell's argument was based on physical evidence and expert testimony. In the eyes of the law, the winner was already obvious. The judge cleared his throat, put on his glasses, and opened a thick file. This was the moment. Having reviewed all documents from both parties, heard all testimonies, and considered all evidence presented, he began with an expressionless tone. My heart shrank. The court notes that the plaintiff, Mr. Tmain, has been successful in presenting significant evidence. The judge continued. I lowered my head, closing my eyes. First, the visual evidence, that is, the photographs, demonstrated the negligence of the defendant, Mrs. Nola, in household management. Second, the financial evidence demonstrated a considerable spending imbalance on the credit card in the defendant's name. Every sentence was a knife cutting into me. And most damaging, the judge said, his voice sounding definitive, is the testimony of the expert witness, Dr. Valencia, regarding Mrs. Nola's emotional state. This testimony was unfortunately reinforced by the defendant's own conduct in the last trial, providing the court with a very troubling image of the psychological environment for the child's growth. I began to cry silently. It was over. Tmain looked at me, a slight, cruel smile of victory appearing at the corner of his mouth. Valencia, behind him, sat straighter, ready to applaud. With all considerations mentioned above, and especially for the best interest and mental health of the minor's area, the court rules. He raised his gavel, and I closed my eyes, ready to hear the sentence that would destroy my life. Stop! The voice was small, but it cut through the silence of the courtroom, sharp and clear. Everyone turned their heads in unison. In the slightly open door at the back of the room stood Zaria. She was alone, still in her school uniform. Obviously, she had snuck in. Tmain's face went from arrogance to shock and horror. Zaria, what are you doing here? Get out of here, he shouted in panic. God! Zaria, sit down, princess. He tried again, his voice tense, but Zaria didn't move. She walked into the courtroom, the sound of her small steps echoing on the marble floor. She didn't look at me, astonished with my mouth open. She didn't look at her furious father. She looked directly at the judge. The room, which had been silent awaiting the sentence, was now frozen. The gavel, about to fall, stopped in midair. The judge's eyes widened, looking at the little girl. I turned around, my heart falling out of my chest. Zaria, I whispered in disbelief. What was she doing here? Who had brought her? Tmain's reaction was the fastest. His face, a moment before full of triumph, was now pale and bloodless. Pure terror in his eyes. Zaria, he yelled, his voice rising, devoid of composure. What are you doing here? Get out of here. This isn't a playground. God, how can a child enter? Zaria shrank at his scream, but she didn't back down. Instead, she walked deeper into the room. Zaria, Daddy said, Turn around and sit down. Tmain shouted again, half standing. His lawyer, Cromwell, was equally bewildered, standing up and shouting at the judge, "Your Honor, this is a procedural outrage. This trial is confidential. A minor should not be here and should not interrupt the proceeding. Order your staff to remove the child." I was still frozen, confused. Part of my mind shattered at the fact Zaria was in this horrible place. The other part trembled with fear. What was she going to say? Had Tmain succeeded in poisoning her completely? Would Zaria tell the judge she preferred her father? The thought made me nauseous. "Your Honor," out of consideration, Attorney Abernathy's voice rang out suddenly, stopping Cromwell. "This child has come with an obvious purpose. This is about her future. We cannot ignore her." The judge raised his hand, his face grave. "Silence, everyone." His voice echoed. He stared at Tmain and Cromwell, silencing their protests. Then his gaze turned to Zaria, his expression softening. Zaria approached slowly, her small steps echoing loudly on the silent marble. She stopped in the center, between the tables of the two lawyers. She looked directly at the judge, sitting on his high throne. "Your Honor," Zaria said, her voice trembling but clear to the whole room. "I'm sorry to interrupt." "It's okay, Princess," the judge said with a paternal tone. "Why are you here? Who brought you?" "I came alone. My auntie brought me, but I snuck in. I heard my daddy say, 'My mommy is bad, Dut.'" Tmain's eyes went wide. "Zaria, watch your words." "Silence, Mr. Tmain," shouted the judge. "Let the child speak." I covered my mouth, tears beginning to flow. Zaria swallowed, as if gathering courage. She looked at the judge again, her pure, clear eyes showing sincerity. "Daddy said my mommy is bad. Daddy said my mommy gets very angry. Daddy said my mommy can't take care of me," she continued, her voice shaking slightly. I closed my eyes. This was the end. Zaria was going to repeat all of Tmain's lies. But then, a sentence made me open my eyes. "But can I show you something?" Zaria looked at the judge with pleading eyes. "Something my mommy doesn't know." That phrase hung in the air. Something my mommy doesn't know. I frowned. What did she mean? Cromwell jumped up again. "Your Honor, this is absurd. A recording from a child cannot be used as evidence. This is an invasion of privacy recorded without permission. That recording proves the lies of your expert witness, Attorney Cromwell." Abernathy retorted sharply. "This is very intriguing. Enough arguing." The judge banged his gavel. His eyes, previously paternal, now shone intensely. He sensed there was a big lie. "Clark, help this child. Connect that device to the court monitors right now." "No." Tmain screamed desperately, gripping the edge of the table with white knuckles. "I object, Your Honor. This is a setup." "Your objection is noted, Mr. Tmain. Now, sit down," ordered the judge. A clerk approached Zaria quickly and carefully took the cracked tablet. He looked for a cable, and moments later, the large monitor screens on the courtroom wall went black and then showed Zaria's tablet home screen. Tmain covered his face. Valencia, behind him, seemed to shake violently. Zaria, now standing next to the clock, looked at the screen. She didn't look at me or Tmain. She was focused on her mission. "This one." She pointed to a video file in the gallery. The clerk clicked on it. A video thumbnail appeared. "Go ahead, Princess," said the judge. "Play the video." Zaria stretched out her small index finger. She pressed the play button on the screen. The video started. The large monitor screen flickered. The shot was slightly shaky and tilted. The angle was low, as if recorded from behind something. A quiet laugh was heard. "It's our living room," I whispered, recognizing the sofa and the large plant pot in the corner of the room. The video seemed to have been taken from behind that pot where Zaria often hid while playing hide-and-seek. And then two figures entered the recorded shot, Tmain and Valencia. Not Valencia in the professional blazer like in court, but Valencia in fine, comfortable loungewear. Her hair was down. Tmain entered laughing and immediately hugged Valencia from behind, kissing her on the neck. "Oh my God." A muffled exclamation was heard throughout the room in unison. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. So the perfume, My suspicions, everything was true. The woman who gave false testimony to ruin me was the same one sleeping with my husband in my house. On the other side, Attorney Cromwell stayed at the monitor with his mouth open. He turned to Tmain with a look of horror, as if saying, "You never told me this." In the gallery, Valencia lowered her head, trying to hide her face. Then the voices of the figures in the video were heard clearly in the silence of the courtroom. Valencia's voice, "Are you sure your plan will work? Your wife is so stupid." Tmain's voice, laughing with certainty, "Stupid and submissive. She won't suspect anything. All the money has already been transferred to your account, baby. Are you sure?" I felt my legs fail. My money, my joint account, had been transferred to Valencia's account. "Oh, God," Abernathy murmured beside me, his eyes fixed on the screen. The video continued. Tmain sat on the sofa and pulled Valencia onto his lap. Tmain's voice, "Once the verdict comes out tomorrow, I will officially get custody of Zaria. We will sell this house from hell immediately and move to Switzerland, far away from her." Valencia's voice, coquettish, "And Zaria seems very attached to her mother." This was the part that hurt me the most. I held my breath, waiting for Tmain's answer. Tmain's voice, disdainful, "Oh, the kid is easy to handle. Just give her a new tablet, and she'll forget her mother. You will be her new mother. A smarter, more successful, and much sexier mother." Tmain kissed Valencia passionately in the video. "Enough. Turn it off." Tmain screamed in rage. He jumped from his chair, trying to run toward the clerk's table to stop the video. "Officers, restrain him," shouted the judge with anger. The two security guards guarding the door moved immediately. They overpowered Tmain before he could advance, bending his arms behind his back. Tmain twisted like an animal in a trap. "Let me go. It's not true. It's manipulated," he screamed desperately. "Silence him," ordered the judge. "Continue the video. I want to see it to the end." The video continued playing, oblivious to the chaos in the room. Now it was Valencia's turn to speak. Valencia's voice, "I'm still a little worried. What about my testimony as a psychologist? What if Nola's lawyer refutes it with his observations?" Tmain's voice, laughing again, "I already prepared. I recorded her last week when she cried hysterically. Remember, I will provoke her again at the trial. I will insult her until she explodes. She will scream and cry in front of the judge." I sobbed. I remembered my testimony, the photo, my screams. He set me up. Tmain's voice, "Once she gets hysterical, your testimony will seem perfect. The judge will see for himself that she is an unstable, crazy woman. No one will believe her. They will believe Dr. Valencia, the professional." The video finally showed Tmain and Valencia toasting with wine glasses, laughing. The video ended. The screen went black. The room remained silent for a few seconds. The only sound was my sobbing and Tmain's panting breath under the guard's control. Everyone in the room, the judge, the clerks, the gallery, and even Attorney Cromwell, stared at the black screen with horror. They had just witnessed a very well-planned evil conspiracy, fraud, perjury, money laundering, and manipulation of the court. In the gallery, some people began to turn their heads, looking for Valencia. "There she is. It's the woman," someone shouted. Valencia realized she was completely exposed. In a panic, she jumped from her seat and ran toward the back exit. Zaria, the little heroine who had been watching the video, turned her head. She didn't look at Tmain, who was subdued. She looked at her mother. Her pure eyes met mine, which were filled with tears. The judge, his face red with rage, raised his gavel high. He didn't drop it in silence. He banged it hard on the desk. "Silence, everyone. The court resumes. Officers, close all exits. No one leaves. Arrest that woman, Dr. Valencia." Immediately, the room fell into controlled chaos. The bang of the furious judge's gavel was both an order and a release of the tension that had frozen everyone. The two security guards who had just subdued Tmain now dragged him to a chair. He wasn't screaming anymore, just gasping, his eyes frantic, his expensive suit soaked in sweat. He knew it was over. At the back door, another commotion. Valencia, in her panic, couldn't open the large door the judge had just ordered closed. She pulled the handle and pushed in vain. A female officer intercepted her quickly. Valencia collapsed on the floor, her professional mask completely fallen. She was no longer the calm, convincing psychologist. She was just a scared woman crying hysterically, exactly the image she had used in the photos to frame me. Karma had arrived too fast, and with cruelty. "Bring her here," ordered the judge, his voice cold and unforgiving. The officers dragged the sobbing Valencia to the front and sat her in the witness stand, which now felt like the defendant's bench. Across the room, Tmain's lawyer, Attorney Cromwell, looked like a melting wax doll. His face was pale, his tie crooked. He no longer looked at the judge. He stared at the stack of papers piled in front of him, without an answer. His career and reputation had been destroyed in an instant by a video from a child's broken tablet. He knew he was implicated. He might not have known about the affair, but he knew about the manipulated photo evidence and the testimony prepared to frame me. I was still sitting, trembling. My sobs had calmed, replaced by a frozen shock. Beside me, Abernathy gave a gentle pat on my back, but his eyes were fixed on the judge, ready for the final blow. Zaria stood silently next to the clock, a center of calm in the storm. She only watched me, as if making sure I was okay. The judge took a deep breath and smoothed his robe. He looked at Tmain, at Valencia, and then at Attorney Cromwell. "Mr. Tmain," he began, his voice quiet but terrifying. "That video is the property of your daughter and was recorded in your own home. Do you still want to insist that it is manipulated?" Tmain raised his head, his face empty. She set me up," he muttered, a last pathetic attempt. "That woman, Valencia, planned everything. She seduced me." Hearing this, Valencia screamed immediately. "Liar! You told me to do it. You told me you would marry me. You told me you would transfer all the money to my account. I did all this for you." Silence. The judge banged his gavel again. "Both are the same. Your confessions have already been recorded in the court record." The judge turned to Valencia. "Miss Valencia, you sat on this stand under oath and gave false testimony. You used your professional credentials to destroy a mother's life and aid in a crime. You not only violated your code of ethics, but you committed perjury before this court." The judge looked at Attorney Cromwell. "And Attorney Cromwell, did you know or should you have suspected that the evidence you presented, including this testimony, was false? You tried to provoke the witness in the last trial to fit your client's false narrative. You have disgraced this profession. I will have the Ethics Committee revoke your law license." Cromwell bowed his head, unable to say anything. Finally, the judge looked at Tmain. His gaze was so piercing it seemed to flay the man alive. "Mr. Tmain, you entered this courtroom demanding justice. You accused your wife of failure, accused her of instability, demanded her assets, and, most heinous of all, demanded to separate a child from her mother." The judge lifted Tmain's lawsuit file and held it up. "Let's review your lawsuit, Feist. The accusation that the wife failed and neglected the home, proven false. The video just demonstrated that you conspired to defame her." He threw a sheet from the file to the floor. "Second, the accusation that the wife was financially irresponsible and wasteful, proven false. The video is a confession that you stole money from your joint account and transferred it to your mistress's account. This isn't just defamation, it is theft." He threw the second sheet. "Third, the accusation that the wife was emotionally unstable, backed by false expert testimony, proven as a blatant scheme. The video proves you conspired to provoke your wife, record her in secret, and use it to deceive this court." He threw the third sheet. "Your entire lawsuit," the judge's voice rose, "is a pile of garbage based on lies, greed, and adultery." The court dismisses entirely the divorce petition presented by Mr. Tmain. The gavel struck hard, but the judge wasn't finished. He looked at Attorney Abernathy and me. "The court will not stop here. Based on this new, irrefutable evidence, the court rules to protect the victim. 1. The judge raised a finger. Full custody of the minor Zaria is granted unconditionally to her biological mother, Mrs. Nola." I gasped. The tears now flowing were of relief. I looked at Zaria. 2. Continued the judge. Mr. Tmain's divorce suit has been dismissed. However, the court suggests that Mrs. Nolla file a countersuit right now. Mrs. Nolla, do you wish to divorce your husband? Abernathy whispered beside me. With a trembling but firm voice, I looked directly at Tmain, who was now defeated, head bowed. Yes, Your Honor. I demand a divorce right now. Good, exclaimed the judge. The court grants the divorce to Mrs. Nolla on the grounds of adultery and fraud by the husband. Full custody to Mrs. Nolla. 3. The judge stood up. Now, all assets in the name of Mr. Tmain and Miss Valencia will be frozen immediately. The court orders a full investigation to trace all funds stolen from Mrs. Nolla. The house currently occupied is declared total property of Mrs. Nolla and Zaria. And 4. The judge's voice now resonated throughout the room. Based on the video evidence and the confessions in this room, I order the immediate arrest of Mr. Tmain and Miss Valencia for multiple criminal offenses, including conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, domestic theft, and tampering with evidence in a court of law. Take them away. The security guards immediately handcuffed Tmain. The man who had entered that morning with arrogance was now taken out with his head bowed. He didn't dare look me in the eye. Valencia was also handcuffed. Her screams dried up, leaving only a puffy and messy face. She was dragged away. Her career and her freedom were gone. I was still sitting, trembling. Attorney Abernathy smiled from ear to ear. We won, Nolla. We won. I couldn't speak. I simply stood up and walked slowly toward the center of the room. Zaria ran toward me. I knelt and hugged my daughter tightly, as if hugging my savior. I cried on her small shoulders. Not tears of sadness, but tears of a mother saved by her little heroine. The aftermath of that judgment day spread like wildfire. The story of the broken tablet made headlines everywhere. The story of the greedy husband, the fake psychologist, and the 7-year-old heroine dominated local news for weeks. The first few weeks were a blur for me and Zaria. Attorney Abernathy took care of everything. By order of the judge, all of Tmain and Valencia's assets were frozen. The investigation proved that Tmain had transferred nearly $1 million to Valencia's account over the last year. All the money was seized and returned to my new account. The big, cold house was now officially mine. But I couldn't stay there anymore. Too many bad memories. Too many shadows of Tmain and Valencia in every corner. With Abernathy's consent, I sold the house. The proceeds from the sale were more than enough to start a new life. The punishment for the villains was swift and severe. Given the overwhelming evidence, Tmain was sentenced to 12 years in prison for fraud, theft, and perjury. Valencia, whose psychologist credentials turned out to be real but criminally used, was sentenced to 8 years, and her license to practice was permanently revoked. The cunning attorney Cromwell was immediately disbarred by the Ethics Committee and faced criminal charges for his participation in the conspiracy. Karma had been paid in full. 3 months after that judgment day, the laughter of children echoed in a small, green park. I, with the weight of worry gone from my face, smiled as I watched Zaria on the swing. We had moved not to a big house, but to a modest and cozy 3-bedroom apartment. It was full of photos of just the two of us, and it smelled of cookies I had baked. I had started a small catering business from home. My culinary skills, which Tmain always belittled, were now praised by many. Orders were coming in. I was busy and tired, but happy. I was independent. Mommy, look. Zaria ran toward me, sitting on a park bench. Her hands were dirty with soil. The flowers are going to bloom soon. I smiled, stroking Zaria's short hair. Wow, my daughter is very good at planting things. We sat side by side for a while, enjoying the afternoon sun. There was a question I hadn't had the chance to ask calmly. Princess, I began softly. Can I ask you something? What, Mommy? Zaria looked at me with clear eyes. The video on the old tablet. Why? Why did you record it? Zaria was silent for a moment, as if remembering. Because I didn't like Auntie Valencia. Why didn't you like her? Auntie Valencia pretended to be nice, smiled at Mommy and talked to you at the mall. But when Mommy went to the bathroom, she told Daddy, your wife takes too long. And in the park, too. She saw me, but she told Daddy that Mommy wasn't watching me. But Mommy was watching me. I was amazed. My little daughter was a sharp observer. And that night, Zaria continued, Daddy said he was working late, but I heard his car come back. I wanted to show Daddy my new drawing. But when I went down, I saw Daddy come in with Auntie Valencia. Daddy hugged her right away. I got scared, so I hid behind a flower pot. So I recorded there. Yes, I used the old tablet to record. I remembered Mommy said that if there are bad people, there must be proof, and I had the old tablet with me. My heart warmed. I had forgotten I had said that. But Princess, I asked again, this being the most important question. Why didn't you tell Mommy? Why did you keep it a secret? Zaria interrupted softly. Daddy said Mommy shouldn't know. I frowned. Daddy told you that? Yes. In the video, Daddy told Auntie Valencia, my wife is stupid. She won't know. Zaria thought it was a big secret because Daddy said Mommy shouldn't know, so she kept it. She didn't want Daddy to get mad if Mommy found out. It was the pure logic of a child. She had aggravated her father's crime, but she had kept it secret because her own father had told her mother shouldn't know. So why did you show it in court? Because the judge was going to take Zaria away from Mommy. Daddy said Mommy was bad, and Auntie Valencia also said Mommy was bad. And that's not true. Zaria had tears in her eyes. I don't want to be separated from Mommy. Mommy isn't bad. Mommy is the best mom. So I had to show the judge that Daddy and Auntie Valencia are the bad ones. I couldn't hold back anymore. I hugged Zaria tightly. I cried tears of joy. For all this time, I had suffered Tmane's accusations that I was a failed mother. I had doubted myself, felt destroyed. But before me was the strongest proof that I hadn't failed. I had raised an incredible daughter, a pure, sharp girl who could distinguish truth from falsehood. A brave girl with the courage to act alone to protect her mother. A girl with a pure sense of justice. Thank you, Princess, I whispered into her hair. Thank you for saving me. Zaria hugged me. I love you, Mommy. I love you, too, Zaria. I undid the hug and looked at my daughter's bright face. Finally, I understood. I had never failed. I had just been raising a heroine, and now both of us were free for a new beginning. Have you ever been in a situation where the truth was hidden in plain sight, only to be revealed by the most unexpected person? Tell me what you think. I really want to know.